Are you one of the business leaders who's flying blind? I've spent 35 years in data analytics, mostly in the business setting, and I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of how companies use data. Now, unfortunately, the ugly examples far outnumber the good, and they're still getting it wrong. Today, I'm going to highlight 5 mistakes that business leaders continue to make, and most of those revolve around adherence to a compartmentalized view of their organization. They assume that operations is separate from human resources, that benefits is separate from performance, and that finances are separate from recruitment, let's say. They are not. Every little aspect of the company represents a puzzle piece in a much, much bigger picture. So mistake number 1 is resisting integration. Every company above 500 employees and probably even smaller would benefit from a comprehensive internal analytic platform that encompasses their whole business. So I guarantee that the first set of insights that the CEO sees from a fully integrated view will alter their understanding of their own organization permanently. Now, some of those realizations were going to be simple, like a true story. CEO turns to the head of HR and says, "Is that really how many people we have employed in New Jersey? Didn't even know." Or it may be a complex discovery, like seeing that in some locations where they have higher paid, more expensive workers, their sales were more than enough to make up for the higher expenses and pay with that group of employees. You see, I believe running a company without integrated data is like corporate malpractice. It's the same as a pilot flying a plane on a cloudy night with no instruments. Now, maybe they know the general direction that they're going and where they want to land, but they remain underinformed about the current status of the flight and what problems they might have in the future. In today's data environment, you can transfer, integrate, and store data in a very doable, straightforward way. Security and privacy can be safeguarded with appropriate protections. And vendors have become really, really efficient at incorporating data feeds, and many of them. So when you hear a leader say, "Oh, we don't have the budget," or "data integration is too difficult," or "we have privacy concerns, so it's impossible," do not believe them. Perhaps those leaders don't really want to know, or maybe they worry they might look bad. Trust me, no company can afford to fly blind. Mistake number 2, relying on industry trends and benchmarks. Now, I've known many brilliant business leaders who are not experienced with data analytics. Some surround themselves with people who can dig into the company's own unique data sets and use those people to translate those discoveries. But other leaders, they avoid investing in their own capability and they rely on outside consultants in the industry. Now, they presume that those experts know the answers and those answers apply to everyone. But when you rely on industry trends and the comfort of authority because you think Mr. Expert says that 50% of Fortune 500 companies do it this way, they're worried about what they might uncover. It requires a certain level of courage to actively understand problems, and that's not the easy way to go. So some leaders say they want to be data-driven, but not all of them mean it. Having data means you'll face the facts. Perhaps certain locations have a higher rate of accidents than others, or one department has low engagement compared to another, or new hires are quitting more and sooner than you expected. If you're not ready to own what's happening, it's easier to pretend the experts are going to know more about your company than you do, but they don't. So the same goes for benchmarks. Benchmarking is overrated. It helps one time. Just because a data integration service has 100 million people in it doesn't mean it's the best platform for understanding your company. Once you understand how to compare to other companies, the next step always is to incrementally improve your own company. So you've compared once, and decision makers quickly learn that having an intimate understanding of the drivers of their own company is far more important than knowing more about other companies after the first comparison. Plus, in my experience, the vendors with the most comparison data, which they brag about because they can do extensive benchmarking, are also the vendors that are the least flexible, because serving as a benchmarking service means focusing on a few standard data feeds in large volumes. This means they're less focused on important idiosyncratic aspects of every company. So show me a leader who chose a data platform primarily because they could do benchmarking, and I will show you a leader who is pulling their hair out 18 months later. Mistake number 3, allowing artificial separation. People, business, and benefits are all part of the same picture. A company needs the full picture of all its people and operations and spending and outcomes, not isolated little pieces. If we continue our plane analogy, it's difficult to make real-time flight decisions if you have to make calls to the head of altitude, then the manager of fuel, then the VP of speed, and get all their independent input and try and make a flight. It's only through integration that companies learn just how interconnected everything is in the whole organization. Turnover, for example, is a function of work schedule, culture, engagement, compensation, and performance. Absence and injury are a function of health, burnout, training, experience, and policy. Net revenue reflects how people are performing as well as how they use their benefits. So it's all one big puzzle, not a collection of little answers. If I had $1 for every time I heard that Department X, say safety or benefits or finance, won't share their data, I would be able to buy a Tesla. See, it's natural because people want to protect their turf. But departments don't own their own data, the company does. Integration advances collective understanding for the good of the entire organization. A department head who is reluctant to cooperate needs to be nudged out of his or her safe space, and that means that the integration platform must accommodate and encourage all the important data sources, not just a few. So if you run into a vendor that does people analytics but ignores health, or does healthcare analytics but ignores business data, they will not produce a fully integrated view. So beware that vendors that have a few standard data feeds and then they charge a hefty fee for each additional feed, if they fully integrate at the company level, they will have many examples of how they use non-standard, unique data feeds, and they should apply no penalty for including those sources that are unique to your organization. Mistake number 4 is asking the wrong question or assuming the usual answers. It's natural to fall back on our own narrow expertise to explain a problem. So for example, people trained in health will assume that high healthcare costs and disability costs are a direct result of greater levels of illness and injury. It makes kind of logical sense. But it's not until they see significant differences in cost that are related to policy or economics or location or engagement or training or experience or many other things that they widen their view of what constitutes a cause. So companies are complex systems that must be understood in a complex way. I've seen hundreds of unexpected connections that we never would have guessed. Some had really straightforward solutions like a policy change. Others required a really tailored adjustment, but all of them saved us from assuming incorrectly how to fix a problem or continuing misguided efforts thinking that it's simple because it did not address the root cause. So once data are integrated, the investigative team that you include should have lots of stakeholders from around the business, plus other people who've had some experience seeing all these kinds of connections before. Don't just ask benefits professionals about benefits or ask operations managers about operations. They should be included, absolutely, but we need to ask bigger questions across stakeholders. Mistake number 5 is falling in love with visualization tools. Don't do it. Visualization tools are instruments like paintbrushes, and they are amazing in talented hands. But unless you're already skilled and have an in-house data imagineer or plan to dedicate a lot of time to learning, visualization tools will sit on the shelf. Business leaders love the idea of data visualization so that it can unlock mysteries and gain new insights, and they become enthralled with the point-and-click abilities to see absolutely everything. And they presume that a beautiful, futuristic 3 or 4 dimensional graphic is going to help them sell their services or demonstrate value more convincingly than a simple bar graph or line graph. But that's rarely the case. So when was the last time you heard a busy executive say, what I really want is to spend time learning a brand new, unfamiliar system that has a steep learning curve using techniques from my least favorite college statistics course? Never. You never heard that. So don't get me wrong. The ability to manipulate data in ways that reveal underlying structures and new answers is a huge advancement with incredible value. These are a nerd's dream, believe me, but they depend on 2 things: sufficient high-quality data sources integrated and a talented professional professional who understands both the data and the tool. This applies both to visualization tools for internal use and to those made accessible to customers. So don't assume you or your clients will be able to make use of fancy analytics easily. I estimate that over 90% of the hands-on tools that I've seen sold to the leaders have either sat unused or were assigned to their direct reports, and we hope they can figure them out. So pretty pictures are secondary to having solid skills and systems. Instead, start with thoughtful integration of data, invest in someone who can help you make sense of integration, and in summary, integrate everything. Integrate the parts that make your company unique. Integrate across types of expertise. Integrate with a vendor who emphasizes uniqueness and flexibility over standards and volume. Forget the bells and whistles. Get a solid platform and experienced analytic support. That is how you will convert data into actionable intelligence.